In recent months, the situation in the Middle East has begun to escalate rapidly once again, and more analysts in Washington and Brussels are saying that Iran is returning to the stage as one of the main generators of instability in the region. According to intelligence gathered in CIA and Pentagon reports, after massive airstrikes by the United States and Israel on Iran's nuclear facilities this summer, when Donald Trump's administration took the unprecedented step of directly destroying Tehran's infrastructure, the Iranian leadership managed not only to recover, but to reorient its entire military strategy toward long-term confrontation. Now, when it seemed that the Iranian army was weakened and demoralized, more and more evidence suggests that Tehran has not only endured, but is preparing for a counterstrike. Within NATO, alarm is growing, according to the Washington Post, citing unnamed U.S. intelligence officials. Iran is preparing a series of attacks on American assets in the Middle East, primarily targeting the strategically important Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where about 10,000 military personnel, dozens of bombers, and intelligence centers are currently stationed. This base serves as a key logistical hub for U.S. operations from Syria to Afghanistan, and its destruction would deal a serious symbolic and military blow to the American presence in the region. Sources familiar with internal reports say the attack could be of a combined nature, using kamikaze drones, cruise missiles, and sabotage units infiltrated through the Iraqi border. However, an even more alarming factor for Washington is China. According to Reuters, citing insiders in European intelligence, it is Beijing that is secretly supporting Tehran by supplying, through intermediaries, high-precision navigation components for missiles and advanced electronic warfare systems. While China officially speaks in favor of peace and dialogue, in reality, it is playing a long strategic game. The deeper the United States becomes entangled in the Middle Eastern conflict, the fewer resources it can devote to containing China in the Indo-Pacific region. This is a direct continuation of the same logic already seen around Taiwan. The deliberate dispersion of attention and overloading of the U.S. military machine on multiple fronts. As reported by the Financial Times, citing Western analysts, Beijing is deliberately encouraging Tehran to escalate in order to draw America into a new war of attrition. Notably, after the July strikes on nuclear sites, when Trump declared in his White House speech that Iran would never rise again, China sharply intensified its economic cooperation with Tehran, launching new oil contracts bypassing sanctions and expanding military technology exchanges. According to experts from the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, this has become part of an informal deal. Tehran receives resources and technology, while Beijing gains a tool of pressure against the United States. Meanwhile, Iranian propaganda increasingly mentions an upcoming battle for Qatar. Yesterday, Al Jazeera, citing sources in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, reported that a strike on the U.S. base would signal to the entire region that Iran has returned and is capable of dictating its own terms. The Pentagon calls such statements military rhetoric, but classified briefings for Congress reveal a very different mood. According to Republican Congressman Michael McCaul, the U.S. military considers the probability of an attack to be extremely high. The picture is further reinforced by satellite images published by The Guardian, showing new fortified positions in southern Iran and the redeployment of mobile missile systems closer to the Persian Gulf coast. U.S. European allies are also concerned, but are acting cautiously. Last week in Brussels, an emergency NATO meeting was held to discuss the scenario of a massive Iranian strike on American targets. There is also speculation that Tehran could use Lebanon's Hezbollah as a tool for diversionary attacks against Israel, aiming to paralyze Washington's actions on two fronts at once. All of this creates an extremely dangerous knot of contradictions, where a single spark could ignite a large-scale war. Iran, which seemed weakened after the summer bombings, now appears as a player with nothing to lose. Support from China gives it a second wind, and the threat of a strike on the U.S. base in Qatar is no longer just a media scare. It is a real scenario already being discussed in Pentagon headquarters. Interestingly, heated debates have been ongoing within the Pentagon for several weeks on how to respond to potential Iranian strikes. According to Politico, one general from U.S. Central Command stated in private discussions, we are preparing for the worst-case scenario, a massive strike on Al Udeid. At the same time, some American military officials believe that a direct retaliatory strike on Tehran would only trigger a new escalation spiral involving Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states. However, the Donald Trump administration, according to the New York Times, is leaning toward a hardline approach. The White House increasingly emphasizes that Iran must be punished for any attempt on American facilities. Sources familiar with closed meetings say Trump is demanding a rapid retaliation plan targeting all infrastructure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including bases in Syria and Iraq. Statements from Tel Aviv are equally alarming. Israel, which has recently been effectively complicit in strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, now expects a strong retaliatory response. The Israeli defense minister told Channel 12, "If America becomes a target, Israel will automatically be in the crosshairs." The country has already activated its Iron Dome air defense system and put the Air Force on high alert. Meanwhile, Iranian media hint that possible strikes on the U.S. base in Qatar would be only the first act of a larger campaign, and Tehran is confident Israel will not remain uninvolved. Saudi Arabia is also on high alert. According to Al Arabiya, Saudi forces are urgently reinforcing the protection of oil infrastructure on the eastern coast, fearing that Iran could paralyze the global oil market in the event of a large-scale conflict. Several experts at the Middle East Institute in London note that this could be a key element of China's strategy. A global oil crisis would hit the U.S. and Europe first, slowing their economies, while China, receiving oil under long-term contracts from Iran and Russia, could withstand the shock. Energy routes are also critical. The U.S. base in Qatar is only a few hundred kilometers from the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic artery through which up to 30% of global oil and liquefied gas supplies pass. If Iran decides to blockade the strait, oil prices would instantly surge above $150 per barrel, pushing the global economy to the brink of recession. Bloomberg reports this, citing internal forecasts from major investment banks. Already, insurance premiums for tankers passing through Hormuz have risen 20%, signaling growing anxiety among global traders. All of this turns the Middle East into the planet's primary powder keg. Iran, supported by China, Israel, ready for retaliatory strikes, Saudi Arabia, defending its oil fields, and the U.S., whose largest base in the region could face a real threat for the first time in decades. Experts at the Atlantic Council note that the situation resembles a chess game, where every piece moves with precise calculation, yet the board is already filled with hidden traps. Iran is betting that America will not risk getting bogged down in another conflict. China is betting that Washington will be overloaded on two fronts, and Israel and Saudi Arabia are betting that the U.S. will still prevent a regional catastrophe. But the longer the parties orchestrate these maneuvers, the higher the likelihood that it will end in a sudden explosion, one that could shift the balance of power not only in the Middle East, but across the entire world.